Why is this film out now? Let's start there. Why is this film out now? Um, there was a moment in this film when General Ross, played by William Hurt, he starts saying some stuff to Black Widow, and as he's saying this stuff, I'm like, okay, so where is this right now? I mean, what's happening? Because it like Sokovia Accords, what's this? Because Civil War happened a long time ago. So as I'm watching this, and you're seeing what Ross is saying, and you're not seeing the events of the film, they bricked it. Feige bricked it. The MCU bricked it. This film makes no sense whatsoever being released now. There's You can call it whatever way which you want it. This film being released now makes no sense. If this film was released after Civil War, which is when it should have been, it would make more sense. Because then we'd understand about, the thing with Black Panther, the thing with them being on the run, those guys who on the run, them looking after those guys. So the fact that Ross was now referring to the guys who they had caught and so forth, you had to unscrew your brain and be like, oh yeah, Civil War and what was happening there. Then afterwards, okay. Because look, I didn't read the description of this film. Like, I obviously heard that it took place after Civil War, but I forgot. But when you're watching this, I was like, because it makes the film feel irrelevant. It makes it ultimately feel irrelevant when you're watching it and you're like, we've so gone past Civil War, past after Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, that now referring back to this just feels regressive. It feels regressive. So just putting that to one side about how they bricked it, because they fully bricked it. They messed up. They screwed over Scarlet Johansson in us releasing this when they should have, which was after Civil War. But let's talk about the film. Look, let's start with the good. The good and the bad. The good, it's well made. This is a well made film. And in terms of the direction, the framing, like it feels like, okay, the lady who was in charge here, it's like it feels okay. This feels like a professional piece of work. It doesn't feel sloppily put together. Like if, let's say, you had one guy from the road like that Letteria dude who keeps getting chances to make this film, you will see it being sloppy. So even if the fight scenes aren't so amazingly well done, there is still, I can't wait thinking, okay, it's the film looks good. The pacing is good. Scene to scene, it looks good. I'll get to the script issues, but I'll say overall, the director did a decent job in the overall look of the film. And David Harbour, I thought he was really good. Really good. I think just, when he obviously put in the Russian accent and so forth, like the scene in the prison cell was good. And also the guy, you've seen him in what's it called, Stranger Things, and so forth. Good actor, but I thought he did a real good job there. Florence Pugh Pugh. Florence Pugh Pugh. Here's the thing about Florence Pugh. So again, I said I'll start with the good because I'll go with the bad, but I'll start with the good. No, you can tell that yes, she's a good actress, and you can tell that you can see the difference in acting quality when she's with Scarlett Johansson. You could just see that she is just a much better actor than Scarlett Johansson. Because whenever they were in both of the scenes, you're like, okay, yeah, someone is really acting and showing better acting technicalities than Scarlett Johansson, who for me, she's not great. But I think Florence Pugh, I'm like, oh no, she did a really good job in really making, because my thing about it was that obviously the character had to have the jokes because every MC film had to have the jokes, and just the way that she delivered the jokes and so forth was on point. So I think she really nailed the character and put her character across well in this. Um, what else? I'm just trying to go through all the good. There is a really good story here, but the execution was right. So again, maintaining with the good, there's a good story here in terms of these young girls who've now been taken and have now been trained soldiers. So the ideas of okay, this is something interesting. They just didn't really go to town with it, and they didn't really execute on that storyline in the way I think that they could have. So they didn't really do it justice. Because when you just see how it started, like, okay, but the development of it with regards to the Black Widows and what they're about and really telling us about their pain and so forth just didn't really hit home. Um, and I think that's where all the good ends. I think that's where all the good ends. Ray Winston. I liked him. And also, Ray Winston is always good. Ray Winston is always good. Like, I've never seen a film where Ray Winston has not been good because I just think, like, look, because when you hire him and you guys will give him a character, he'll always do Ray Winston. So I thought, no, he was good. As the villain, he was good. Let's deal with the bad. Scarlett Johansson is not a very good actor. She just isn't. Hence why I was like, why are you giving Black Widow a film? When, first of all, because this is even what I said from Avengers. Give the character of Black Widow to a really good actress. Like, let's say, maybe she'd be too old. Let's say you gave it to a Kate Blanchett. Let's say you gave it to a Kate Blanchett or someone, like a really good actress. You'd probably have a very interesting character. Who you'd be like, okay, I wouldn't mind seeing it. But because Scarlett Johansson is such an average actor, so now that she's not been given her film and now she has to carry a film, she can't carry her own film because she's just not. She doesn't have a strong enough screen presence, and her acting just isn't very, very good. So when you watch it, like, and you could see that in a lot of the emotional scenes and so forth, she struggles. She struggles, and as I said again, when she was next to Florence Pugh or next to Raven, specifically Florence Pugh, it just didn't work. So for me, yeah, Scarlett Johansson leading a film doesn't work. Now, Florence Pugh, good actress. I don't think she wasn't cast well in this. And this is where casting is very important. Because casting has nothing to do with your level of skill as an actor. Like I've been to casting sessions and so forth, and they view you, obviously for your acting skill, but also what you look like. The thing with Florence Pugh is that she looks like a popsicle. She literally looks like a popsicle. So I found myself just laughing because I was like, look, can you see what this girl looks like? Like there's a point where she's like strapped down and so forth. And you can just see how short and how small she is. So she's like a pocket size. So she's trying to be tough and messed up. But you look like a Smurf. She literally looks like a mini like a blonde Smurf. So I felt that they could have picked somebody who you could really feel the edge and feel, because when you look at her face, you can't take her seriously. She's not someone that I should be fearful of. So that's there. This film obviously is a thriller, espionage. So you're looking at the action. The action in this wasn't great. It wasn't great. Like, there were some good scenes and so forth, but you could just tell that this is where you really need a good action director that really knows what they're doing. So when I just look at the action scenes, they were not bad. And it's good that they wouldn't overuse shaky cam. But for me, I cannot remember any action scenes from this. Like, you remember a lot of the Winter Soldier scenes. You remember the scenes in the first Captain America when he faces Red Skull, or when it was the end, just based on just the visual nature of it and just how Joe Johnson was able to execute on the Russo brothers. There were no action scenes that were memorable in this, and I think that takes some skill, which the director obviously does not have. So the thing with the storyline is, as I was watching, I was like, what's the story here? See, Iron Man, aha, the story of this really arrogant, self-loving billionaire who obviously has this thing happen to him, and then he then changes himself. Captain America, my gosh, young kid, wants to go into war, gets rejected from the war, takes the super serum, and the super serum makes him super strong, but he doesn't really change who he is as a guy. And it just shows you about the soul of a soldier and so forth. So you can see the story there. Now, I understand what the story was here. The execution didn't really work, of like this young family who are taken in, trained to be these ruthless soldiers and so forth. And then you see how it affects them. As I was watching it, I was like, okay, I'm midway through, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm watching a story. I don't feel like if I've been taken on a journey. It just feels as if this is the scene, scene, section, and there isn't a thread. Like Iron Man 1, you could see the thread and the arc. Like Captain America, all the films, especially the first and second one, you can see an arc. You can see an arc. I couldn't see the through line of a story of this the beginning, this is the middle, the end, and this is where things change, and then this is the character arc of this whole thing. So I can know a major thing was selling the family unit and selling the relationship between obviously Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson. Yeah, I know her name is Florence Pugh. I just call it Florence Pugh because it's funnier. So, but that is really so. After watching Black Widow, it's for me, it ultimately feels this was a pointless film. It was already a pointless film when they announced it because I'm like, why are you announcing this now when this should have come after Civil War? But obviously, Scarlett Johansson was like, look, bro, you can't not give me my own movie. And again, for the optics will be bad ways. You don't give the only female Avenger their own film. It looks bad. So, fighting people are like, look, let's just give her this freaking film. Just um, you know, cover all of our bases. But for me, pointless film. Pointless. Like after you watch it, like okay now. So obviously, okay again, I don't want to give any spoilers away. So an end credit scene does lead to something, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But for me, I'm like, and you see, here's see, and see, I'm going to say something that a lot of people may not like and so forth. You see, and this is just a fact because see, I like to be honest and I like to be open. Um, Women doing action. The only women I'll accept doing action are either women who've trained or Asian women. Because Asian women, you can just see that they have the grace and they understand the execution of knowing how to execute action. So for me, if it's women doing it, it's either going to be Asian women or you've got to train, which is what Carrie Ann Moss did, or what Halle Berry did for John Wick 3. But you look at what Carrie Ann Moss did, months. She spent months training. So when she did that, because she was told the stance, how to do the execution, how to look, everything. Like when you saw these women, especially when you saw Florence Pugh fighting or Scarlett Johansson fighting, it looks like girls fighting. That's how a girl would punch. That's how a girl would kick. And that's how Carrie Ann Moss would have looked if she just did it with no training. But after 3-4 months with Wen Wu Peng, Carrie Ann Moss looked freaking awesome doing the action. She looked freaking amazing doing the action. So for me, it's like that is what took it out because I was like, there's a lot of action in this. And this just looked like girls doing action. Because like if we now go into the real story of let's say if this was really real, these women would have gone through months of rigorous training. So when you see like female soldiers or so forth, they don't just rock up on a set after a month and just no. You see them go through several months of training. So when you see female soldiers, they're like, no. You're seeing months of training of like how to look, how to execute a punch, a kick, how to hold a gun, how to move. But because again, like I'm sorry, it looked like girls. So it was funny. I was like, okay, this just looked like girls just having fun. So um overall for me, the film is well made. It's decent, but for me, it just seemed pointless. It just seemed like a pointless film, and they're just scenes that just sort of dragged a bit. So for me, I'm like when you just compare this to Black Panther, like for me, I think really the high points of the MCU are Black Panther, Iron Man 1, and all the Captain America films. So that's always the gold standard you must aim for. And Ant-Man and obviously Guardians of the Galaxy. Like when you look at those films, specifically Black Panther, Iron Man 1, and the Captain America films, there is a strong story. And you can see I can see the story here. I can see the character arc here, which is very strong. Black Widow just really, really feels with really delivering a strong story that really resonates with you, and really strong character work. Because you look at Black Panther, look at the performance of Michael B. Jordan, look at the performance of Chadwick Boseman. You go to Iron Man 1, the performance of freaking Robert Downey Jr., and a very underrated villain performance was the dude, because oh gosh, what's his name? Basically, Lebowski. What is Bridges? Jeff Bridges, because Jeff Bridges. His brother's Paul Bridges, Jeff Bridges, and of course Captain America. Chris Evans was a freaking revelation in that. So this was just missing the great performances and a great story. Because that's what Black Panther, Iron Man 1, and Captain America had. Really good stories, really strong performances. And I just think Black Widow was missing from them. But ultimately, from what I said, why the heck are you bringing this film out now? It just seems so untimely and so unnecessary. Should have come after Civil War. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Remember to drop that like and subscribe. One love.